Post-release era of SmackDown is firmly upon us. We'll get into that and a little bit more as we talk about this week's SmackDown on the Smack Attack. Hello, Money McIver here, alongside not my partner in crime, John Enright, but a friend of ours from the Impact Attack. Let's introduce the vet of the Impact Attack. How we doing, my man?
And we're doing great. I'm very excited to be here on the Smack Attack, even though I'm going to be talking about WWE wrestling. Nonetheless, it's a great chance and a great opportunity to get to talk with some more HMG members that I have not met before. So this is
like the first time we've worked together, which is great, which is interesting in itself. Like when you think about how many people work on the Hammy Media Group and what we do, it's quite rare that we get to do. Well, I'll say quite rare we get to do a crossover, but it's quite exciting when we do this as well. Like you get to see new people and get different takes on the world of wrestling. Again, you focus a lot more on the Impact side of things than we do, but it's still a fun time all round. What's it like for you? Like coming over to this show and doing the Smack Attack and Impact? Is it different way of working, or is it just the same, much the same? Minus technical difficulties, of course.
Of course. No, it's for me. It's just it's all kind of the same. Most of the people that I've worked with, I met on the show that I did with them first. Yeah. I got paired up with Colin as a producer, so the first meeting we had was the first show we did. I worked with the first meeting we had was the first show we did. Ben Hami and I've known from before. Big Ray I met. We've done a little bit of stuff together, but it's been real easy for me. It's seamless. It doesn't really matter what we talk about because I keep my eyes on entire wrestling as much as I can fit into my schedule.
Yeah, that's not too bad then. So you're well versed on everything in wrestling for that there. And I think we talked a little bit before we went live. You've followed SmackDown. It's quite interesting to see what your opinion's going to be on this show. I don't think it's a great SmackDown to jump in on. Well, I say it's jump in. I remember talking. You were a bit more critical of SmackDown in your own way rather than myself. So to see a SmackDown like this, what was it like to jump in to do a show about it? Were you a bit? I don't know. I don't know if you were a bit like myself, or it was a bit disappointing that this is a SmackDown that you get for this week's show.
I'm disappointed every week. Money. I mean, this is just another week for me. I keep this stuff on, in the background. The only difference is this time I'm like paying attention to it a little bit more because as a former wrestler, my perspective is that I have to talk about things that other guys aren't going to talk about on review shows. So I can get quite granular, detail-wise on what actually goes on in the ring, and I'll just throw that in there to give the fans that extra perspective that they're not going to be getting.
I'm looking forward to that. Because of course me and John usually talk from the perspective of a fan, so we've got our own sort of backgrounds and knowledge and things. But I always find it really good to get a pro in to do a proper deep dive into some of these shows. And there's a little bit of wrestling to talk about. I don't know if it was the greatest wrestling show ever, but I think it's going to be quite a fun show to get into. Before we do the show, though, I think a lot of shows have already spoke about this, but I think it's always good for us to take a wee bit of time on Smack Attack to talk about it. Is the releases this week? WWE decided to get the checkbook and start getting rid of people and tidy up the accounts a little bit. We got some big releases that came through. The most notable one, obviously, is Braun Strowman, but from the SmackDown side of things, we got the releases of Aleister Black, Ruby Riott, Buddy Murphy as well, which were, to a degree, a bit more surprising. A lot of people would blow it off and say it wasn't surprising, but when you consider the positions a lot of them were in, Aleister Black just had a storyline written for him with Big E. Ruby Riott started to have a bit more, prominence, but they were getting a bit more involved in the tag division again. Buddy Murphy, somehow, which is a bit of a surprise in itself. So, what do you think, looking at SmackDown just now, was it a wise move creatively? Obviously, financially, it's a good move, but creatively, maybe not so much.
I don't know, because I can't see that any of them were contributing to the show. So we ended last week's episode with Aleister Black going in, after the weeks of what looked to be very extensive animated vignettes, trying to like reintroduce him into the roster here. So it's surprising the suddenness of that, but I guess the way they're looking at it is, well, if we're gonna cut him, we might as well just cut him. There's no point in cutting him, after giving him one more payday with perhaps a big match with Big E or something like that. So I don't know, but the ball's been dropped on him completely ever since he's left NXT. So really no surprise. The ball's been dropped on pretty much everybody out of NXT in the past several years of any significance, except for one person.
I'm quite interested to get your thoughts on that there, but the signs of what happened has been a bit clear. Apologies for the picture, guys. My webcam's just dropped out, so you're not going to see me for the rest of the show, unfortunately. But you will see the vet there is in his glory, a little bit slower than normal, but we're okay. We're fine. So apologies for the technical difficulties if you are hanging with us on the live stream on YouTube. Yeah, you kind of see the permutations of the roster cuts in this show. There wasn't too many. It was quite condensed in terms of who they had on, but things moved on quite quickly almost. But I don't know. They didn't really cover the tracks too well. I suppose we should just get straight into it. Would that be kind of the way to go on this? Because we can feed in a lot of these stories as we go through.
Yeah.
General thoughts on SmackDown as we opened up there. Did you kind of enjoy the show for what it was, despite me mentioning disappointments here and there? But there are things to take away out of this show.
The one thing that you could say this almost about any SmackDown, okay? And that is that the stuff that Roman Reigns is doing belongs not only on a different show, but in a different wrestling company.
Oh, man.
It really goes to show you that what they can do versus what they will do are just leagues and leagues apart. So whenever you're sitting here and you're watching these slick segments with the Uso family and Paul Heyman and everything, you're just like, why can't everybody? It may not all be that.
It's far and beyond what we're getting online just now. Oh, something's happened here. It's far and beyond what's going on at the moment compared to what, as you say, compared to what we're saying. It's not just that, but like Raw, you see the standard of storytelling on Raw has just been outrageously bad. We're getting the same old. Alexa Bliss is apparently the only one that has some form of an interesting story, and even at that, it's a bit concerning for what we're getting for that. The type of talent that you have on here. But this revival that we're getting from Roman Reigns and the work they put in, it bleeds into other things. So you see the opening of SmackDown, we've got the tag title situation, and that takes over the whole show. The first match of the night is the tag title match, and then we get a do-over later on in the show, which seems to just elevate it that little bit more. That's something we've been screaming for a while, is just a little bit more importance on the tag division, maybe expand it a little bit, but at this point it looks really strong. What's your feelings on Roman Reigns being more of a sort of not a matchmaker as such, but sort of sitting back on the next month or so and just pulling the strings a little bit? And so it seems like more of a character development month for Roman Reigns than it is for anyone else.
It's a good way to get them where they want to go. If they're trying to get Roman heat, then that's heat.
Yeah.
Because the idea being like, if we don't like, that means we want to see him get beaten up by somebody, right? That's the jet champion in wrestling. It's like, we want somebody to kick his ass and take his belt. That's basically what we're waiting for. If he's not putting himself out there front and center, or if he's sitting back, like you said, pulling the strings, or he's not to get ahead, but picking his spots, all that stuff psychologically, subliminally, subconsciously in the fan's mind, that's putting heat on Roman Reigns, because we look at him as a strong character who's doing things that he doesn't need to do, and that's really the genesis of any heat, especially when you're talking about people taking shortcuts when they're extremely skilled. Can you imagine if, like, to use an American sports analogy, it was like he was always fouling people on a dirty player and cheating, right? You'd think, well, this is the best basketball player in the world. Why is he doing these things? And people hate him enough already as it is. But I mean, just imagine if he was doing that too. So like that's where, like that's kind of the same idea. Like Roman Reigns seems unbeatable anyway, and now he's going around doing a bunch of extra stuff, and that's getting him more heat. So that part is really working.
Yeah, it really is, and it's fun to see. I think we do a lot of these things, and a lot of people look for heat, and it's just we're not enjoying something for the sake of enjoying something, but they are working with them considerably to get some more. It's good for him as well because he doesn't really have anyone in the pipeline, and they're not just spending time shoving a character into that position just for the sake of having them there. It's a move that they tend to do quite often, so it's refreshing that they're trying to take a unique step. And as you say, he's not doing too many backdoor escapes. He's been quite cunning, but he's not been. Sorry, I'm a little bit distracted by the sort of technical issues as we are doing here. But he is spending a bit more time proving he's the best. You know, there's a bit more leverage in what he says when he's like the top guy in the company. He's one of the best people in there. Maybe not the best technical wrestler going, but he has got that ability to find a way, which is quite fun to see. It's almost like they're trying to bring the Hello? Is he there?
Yeah, I lost you for
That's
a second.
okay. I thought I lost you there.
You said the last thing I heard was it's almost like, and then
Oh yeah, so I was just saying it was almost like they're trying to bring back the Brock Lesnar mystique without having him there.
Yeah. Well, you brought up another good point though, because you said they don't have anybody in the pipeline, so it's really then just treading water. But this is the problem when you spend all of your time and put all of your resources into this one, then nobody is unbelievable for Roman Reigns to work with.
Yeah.
So you're essentially getting like, we get Cesaro, right? But nothing about Cesaro that we've seen based on how they've treated him makes us feel like he's going to have any chance of winning a match at that level, right? So it's just one of those. It's just one of those type of things. It's like if they had protected Cesaro more, or if they had not jobbed Daniel Bryan out so many times, then maybe we would think that these guys have a chance to knock Roman Reigns off the mountain. We don't believe it for a second, right? So it's very unfortunate. He doesn't have anyone to work with right now, and they keep releasing anybody that maybe he might.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. Sorry again, I'm distracted. Classified Chappie. Yeah, we are kind of having some technical difficulties at the moment, just with connections and audio just now. So we are trying to work away as we go through the show for that there. Let's have a look there. Yeah, we are trying to work on that, J3. Don't worry, we do see you there. We are trying our best.
So everything so far except for that one part on the call sounds good. So maybe in podcast form, this will be more listenable.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Anyway,
on top of the other difficulties that we have, sometimes YouTube just decides they don't want to work either.
Yeah.
So it could be a combination as well. So hopefully that's
yeah. Them gremlins on YouTube, they love me. They love me so much on this thing. So I had the same problems last week, and I don't know why, but we'll get to them anyway. But we'll get into the show. Let's get straight in about it. Let's get to the opening part of the show. We ended a nice streak that SmackDown had. The last few weeks, SmackDown got straight to business with a nice match and something a bit more unique. But we got a bit more of the normal state of play with a Roman Reigns promo coming in. Just kind of, I suppose it was more leading the charge this week, wasn't it? He was more kind of trying to motivate the Usos, which is a bit of a strange one for that. I don't think you really need to. But it did set the table for the story. If you're just jumping in as a new fan, want to know what's going on, seeing this part was probably helpful. You know, talking about How Roman Reigns is a
Set
giver.
the table. I see what you did there, James. I see what you did there. Set the table, huh? The head of the table. I get it.
And he is the head of that set table. But it's just Roman Reigns just talking about more of himself, bigging himself up, being a giver. And it's interesting. He gets Heyman to call it the Usos, not himself. He goes, it's time, right? It's time for them to come out. And then he just goes, Heyman, tell them to come out. Surely they can hear him. Bit of an odd thing, right. but I liked it. I did like it. And then the Usos came out. Something I want to pick up on just from the off that was very interesting to me is Usos had different t-shirts on. You had Jay with his main event Uso style shirt, and then Jimmy with the original, well, I'll say the original, but the last shirt that they had as a tag team of the day one-ish shirt, which I thought was quite smart. I thought it was quite a smart idea because you're still leaning off the Jay's confliction being connected to Roman Reigns, and he wants to stay main event Jay Uso, and Jimmy just wants things back the way they were, just back to the normal Uso tag team and how tight they were. Just that nice little touch. I'm really appreciating that. As you say, it's a story that doesn't usually belong on WWE TV, but I really appreciate the little nuances that they're bringing into this.
If I'm not mistaken, it's been like where he's wearing his, because that's the story they're telling, is that this, that Jimmy is all about getting the team back together, and Jay is kind of like conflicted, getting pulled in two directions. So he's wearing his right-hand man shirt, and he's kind of he's wearing his own merchandise that he's had since Jimmy's been gone. So that's kind of what he's doing. So I noticed that a couple of things about this first part, where Pat McAfee calls him the greatest WWE superstar of all time on the way down to the ring. It's like, that's not even, I don't even know if that's close to true. Maybe there's some sort of like they're taking a shot at John Cena directly because of recent events. But in any way you slice it, it's pretty funny. Also, they bothered to pipe in Roman sucks chants. That
just seemed odd. It just seemed really odd.
Right, because we all know it's artificial. But they're really like create a crowd's behavior with these details. Which another fun is when they're doing the Roman sucks chant and he goes, he doesn't. So that was good.
Just playing off them a little bit.
So,
do you think this is Do you think this is a bit of WWE trying to program the fans before going to a live event at Money in the Bank? Is that what we're seeing here?
When do they not try to program?
Oh, totally. This feels like
what they have enjoyed about this recent, past year, where they haven't had live audiences, or say for the PR that they miss the universe and they want the universe. This is their chance to do all this shit that's not going to get them. They would get booed out of the building for the stuff they've been doing.
Oh my god!
Year. So this is their chance to not have any pushback and to get all the dumb stuff in that they want to do. People think.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've enjoyed.
Yeah, they've kind of felt a bit safe. And it shows in some of the stuff they make. Like a lot of when they go back to live crowds, there's a lot of fixing things they'll have to do to get to Monday Night Raw, especially for that there. But even SmackDown's not perfect. But this seems like a really nice lead-in storyline for this whole situation. Having Roman Reigns doing what he does, I feel it's going to be the most well-reflected storyline with the audiences. I think there'll be a lot more responsiveness to it than anything else. But at the same time, it feels like it's the only thing they're really putting energy behind. Like the rest of their creative, as you say, isn't as strong for anyone else. So it'd be a bit of a worry if you're another talent, especially off the back of some of these releases, that no one's safe. Anything can happen. So they could just kind of get cold feet on a couple of storylines and then start again. And you don't want brand new from the off. You want something already in the chamber to go. So this could be the savior for the company in the storyline if they get it right. If they get it right, there's still time for them to fuck it up, which they usually do.
Not as strong creative is very diplomatic on your part, I have to say.
I try my best.
Are you angling for a job? Are you trying to get hired? Did you apply when they put out the open call for writers and creative?
Oh please, they can't afford me. I just think, for me, like I've got a theater background and performing arts, so I always try and appreciate a little bit more of like the creative side of things. But sometimes you got to call a spade and be like, this is shit. This is so bad. But
I call those times Friday nights.
Oh, it's not all bad. It's not all bad.
It's
I've seen worse, Joes.
well, that's everyone's, Jason, that's everyone's thing is like when you hear fans talking about, like, anytime, let's say, for example, let's say the AEW does something and then WWE calls them out on it, and the fans are like, well, you guys did this same thing, blah blah blah. It's like, okay, you're bringing up a bad example or an example of something bad to excuse why something currently bad.
Yeah.
I mean, no one was saying stuff was good either. We have to constantly be looking to move forward and get better with everything that we do, right? So at least that's how a normal person would think about it. But WWE is a different beast entirely. They are all at the whim of one man that can make all the final decisions, and as a result, the entire product suffers because he's long since given up on trying to look for that next big thing. To pardon the expression, but so I don't know. Just so, but what happens is over time, like the mediocrity piles on and gets worse, and it degrades and it degrades and it degrades. Like hopefully our audio stream is not degrading right now.
Oh, it's melting.
But if as time goes on and things get worse, people get conditioned to that. And then merely mediocre seems like the greatest thing that they've ever seen, And
yeah,
it's. I always want to bring people back and bring the perspective and not allow them to settle for mediocrity. You got to call everything out. You are getting comfortable in this shittiness. Then that's what allows the standards to keep slipping as low as they've slipped the past 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, it's really scary when you think about it like that. Like, it makes you wonder what the next really strong bit of storytelling is going to be, or what's it going to take. As you say, a lot of people will accept mediocrity. What will it be like when something genuinely strong and good comes out? It seems like we wouldn't know how to handle that, especially if it comes from one company or the other. There'd be a lot of sort of everyone would be. It just seems like you'll get a Marmite moment where it'll be absolutely genius, but then people will hate it. And I think it's the same with wrestling. No matter what you do, there will be people that just don't like it, or it just doesn't work out the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there always will. I remember, watching the pipe bomb promo. I was like, "Oh, this is okay."
Yeah.
I'd give anything for that now.
Oh, totally.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like things were so bad that seemed like a big deal. And it really wasn't, but it felt like it was. So anyway, we don't want to spend too much time on this one subject because we haven't even started talking about the actual match itself yet.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, we should really get into this. The Usos versus the Mysterios for the tag team titles opened the show. Don't worry, this isn't the only time we'll get to see them, so there's not much happening here. For a match, both really good teams of workers. Obviously, Dominic's working up, but it just felt a bit slow for my liking. I don't know about you. It just didn't seem to have the sort of pep and the speed that you would expect from this kind of match. It just seemed like it dawdled more than anything.
I'm not sure. So one thing I was surprised when they come back from break that they went right to the match instead of like a backstage vignette or an interview in Kayla's little ring or something like that. She still worked there.
She was speaking to Ray Rollins earlier.
Yeah. So there was in this match there was like a weird. people that know me know I talk about the chin lock a lot because the Good Brothers are on Impact, right? So
Yeah.
there's lots of chin locks there. Impact is just called the chin lock attack because it's nothing but people in chin lock. So I quiz Colin on what is the purpose of chin lock in terms of um, wrestling psychology. I gave him 3 chances to get it right. I'll give you the same quiz, Jay. What is the purpose of a chin lock or any hold like that
So I always understood it to be sort of like a break in the match. So it gives you a bit of time to get a bit of breath back in, you re-energize, plan out the next few steps and reorganize. And also if you're kind of doing TV like this, it also gives you a cue to change if you're going on a break or anything like that. That would be my sort of understanding of it.
So you're speaking from the perspective of the workers, but for the match, what is that spot supposed to do? That is the question.
Oh, in the match. Well, it's like an MMA hold. It's like a choke hold. It's supposed to take air out of your lungs and make you tired.
Right, yeah, you're thinking little like in a kayfabe sense. Okay, so I'll say it like this: the purpose of putting on a hold at a certain point in the match is to bring fans down so that they can come back up. So if you've been a psychology from the wrestler, been beating this guy up, I've tried to match, he refuses to stay down. So I'm wear him down some more. That's the psychology wrestler. But for us, the psychology is we're supposed to see him in trouble and get behind him and bring him up. Okay, this works a hell of a lot better when there's actual fans in the building. But for some reason, in the empty arena era of wrestling, people sure do love to do the same spots that they do that almost necessarily require an audience, right?
Holy shit, you have just went into like clear sounding, by the way. sorry to jump in there, but I was like, oh my god, I've found it. We've got you sounding normal again. Thank you.
Oh man,
it's been choppy. It has been choppy, but now it's so smooth, unbelievable. It just kicked in right a second ago.
Okay, well, hopefully things are better now. With my 0 upload. So basically, what this match had a chin lock early on for no real reason. I couldn't figure out why they slowed the match down immediately when nothing had happened yet. So maybe they had to change something on the fly, and that's why they did it. But it didn't really necessarily look like that. Anyways, so that was weird. So they slapped a chin lock on early before they got a set of heat. And Ray made his own mini comeback. And I didn't know at the time how the match was going to have a finish. So I wrote down in the notes that I see Dominic as more the happy to be there guy than the bump around 2 veteran heels on a comeback guy. So I was kind of questioning having him do the comeback and not Rey Mysterio. But as we've seen, the way it ends up happening, where there's a controversial finish and we got to, redo this, so to speak. So
I was just about to say that. I was just about to ask you that very thing, because he's trying to kick out, but he doesn't. His shoulders are still down. From what I've double checked it doesn't look like he gets out of that situation.
Well, that part was the planned part. What wasn't planned is the shitty splash onto Dominic's knees, which he had to aim for his knees because Dominic wasn't even laying flat. He was like laying almost on his side, like almost in a fetal position. And I don't remember which brother just jumps right onto his legs, and it just looks like shit. And then he's got to scramble to put him in this pinning combination.
Like he actually grabs Dominic in a way that he's like, right, if I put my arm here, I'll go over like this. That it really was clear as I think it was Jimmy, actually, because it was a big part of the story going forward. And it was, I totally agree. It just looked well out of whack. Awful. Well out of whack.
Awful. That was all Dominic's fault. He wasn't in. He was not in his right position, and they both made it look bad. I guess they got the finish off that they wanted, though, because the ref was in position to not see the shoulder come up, and that led into later. But but that's beside the point. What I really noticed here was just how bad it looked getting into the spot.
Yeah.
So there we go.
This is the danger that you have as well when you bring in someone with next to no experience into the main show on your weekly TV, and these mistakes will happen. They'll always show themselves in it, and it's a bit of a shame for Dominic, but you'll learn from it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but when you're watching this as a live audience, that's the kind of stuff that makes people turn off. That's a very big gamble that you're making, and to see that finish, and then to know that it's going to, well, you say to know, but later on it gets announced you're getting it again as your main event. It's, if people say that, I go, I don't know, are we going to get the same thing at the end? I'll just change it and put something else on. That's the gamble that they're having with that there. I wasn't too hot in the finish for that there. And the kick out itself, that's why I thought that's what I picked up on this as well. It was that he does push himself up, but I couldn't see his shoulders leave the mat. So we almost had to take their word for it and Michael Cole's word for it that he did kick out. And he didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the replays and stuff, you could see, to me, I could see his shoulder being off the mat.
Oh, can you see it?
So I could see it, but I just felt like, I was thinking, well, I was already thinking about how they fucked up the part right before that. So
it's already done.
But they replayed it enough times and they made it a point. So it was clearly, I mean, obviously it was planned to go that way, right? Because you couldn't have, they didn't just decide to rewrite the main event on the fly, even though that's what they want to act like they do on every WWE show, is like book the main events earlier that night, yeah. Right? So, but we all know that's how it was planned. So, eventually, and then, following that, we see Roman backstage and he wants this fixed immediately, yeah, right? So right away, we're addressing it. So yeah. Here we go, threading the story throughout the show.
About to start telling the teacher what happened, because as soon as this match ends, as you're right in saying, cuts to Roman Reigns calling Paul Heyman to summon his cousins immediately to the table, or these like lounge area, as it will. He always has like such a great lounge, by the way. He just has like. Do you think when they go on tour, do you think they'll scope out a VIP lounge and put him in there every time? Or do you think they'll just take a studio?
They're going to have to, yeah. Right? You get accustomed to a certain lifestyle, and you can't really deviate from that. So.
They could do
not when you're the head of the table, not when you're the tribal chief.
Oh, you need the top banana stuff. You need to be top banana. But anyway, we get the Usos back in. Jimmy explains what happened and that they were cheated. Reigns just goes bananas. He's not happy with that. He talks about him being embarrassed, and they say they have to fix it tonight. Get back out there. And he always says to understand his position. This whole acknowledge me thing, and it does click to a degree, but it's just something with Jimmy doesn't quite jive. I wish we get a bit more, even though we do get a little bit, I still wish we get a bit more of Jimmy just like speaking up a bit more. He sort of picks his shots rather than just standing up to him, but we might see it a little bit more. He throws up the fact that the Usos have only been on WrestleMania once, and then calls Jay Jimmy, and then says it doesn't even matter anymore. Brutal.
Yeah. Very. But I mean, he did just lose to a child.
He did.
So.
That was just. Oh my god. Not just any child though. Eddie Guerrero's child. So could be worse kids to lose to.
That's right. Well, look. Ray won that custody ladder match fair and square. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, it's his son.
I suppose. In the eyes of the law, it is his son. But we all know the truth. It's all out there for the world to see.
All know.
So right. We get a bit of business from them. They're going to go take care of business, and we'll see them later on tonight. Backstage, Kayla Braxton with Seth Rollins, and I quite liked what we saw out of this. This is quite an interesting little promo that Kayla Braxton brings up the question about Cesaro. We see footage of what he did 2 weeks before. We attacked him when he had the arm brace on, when Rollins had talked about being blacked out. And it was just something nice about this where it's like, look, I'm here to do an interview, but I will not answer questions about Cesaro. And he has this big grin on his face. And in the second she mentions, so Cesaro, has this big grin on his face, this big wide open mouth smile, just picks the microphone off his lapel, taps it on her hand, and leaves. And I thought it was so smart. I just thought it was a really smart bit of promo work, because it's easy to just have someone repeat, and it will show itself later on as well. We have someone just repeat the same thing over and over, just trying to hit you on the head with it here. Where again, similar to the Reigns storyline, there's a bit of nuance to it. There's a bit more character development going on. You know, last week we had Rollins. I keep mixing them up. You have Rollins joking it was his birthday and he was having a great time, and then he flicked the switch and became a bit more intense and dignified and just spoke to you at a different level. And it's the same thing here. He had this happy, silly grin, and as soon as something happened that he didn't like, he switched his stance. He switched his moveset. He just decided, I'm just gonna put a microphone there. See you later. And then I like this version of Rollins, and it's something I've not had the chance to say for a while, because it's just so annoying for a while. Like how he does the Monday Night Rollins. I didn't mind his Messiah stuff, but when the Mysterio family storyline came in, it got a bit tiresome. Where this is a bit more fresh. That's maybe the best word to put it.
Which followed him to SmackDown.
Oh man!
Like they both got drafted, and you're just like, enough of this. I'll tell you what doesn't have any nuance, right? Is this suit that he's wearing that's like made out of someone's grandmother's comforter? What the hell? What in the hell was this? What was any of this?
Where does he find these suits? He just comes out with something ludicrous every week. How can he afford them?
Right. I think I don't know. Well, he's earned a lot, and I'm sure he saved some of it, and now he's spending it.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. Like, I've never cared less about Seth Rollins in my entire life than I do right now. Which is a shame, because I know what he's capable of. And they're just not doing anything kind of with him. It's weird to have a Roman Reigns playing the character that he's on, and then having a character like Seth Rollins that's been so, like, even for professional wrestling, cartoonishly egomaniacal and oblivious. And you're going to tell me a guy like that would not be constantly trying to get into Roman Reigns' business because of the history they've had? Like, how could those two guys coexist on the same show in the same building and never interact ever? I mean, they did like once back when the Cesaro thing, that like he kind of was out there with Roman and they kind of, had a quick exchange. But other than that, you would think he'd constantly be trying to get the rub from the head of the table.
I suppose it's more of a concerted effort to kind of keep away the ghosts of the Shield, isn't it? That we're not going to get any more of that, because I think they want to, obviously with the Moxley stuff, they just want to avoid it, which is, I would say, is fair.
Who cares? No, it's not fair. Like, they can't have the Shield reunite, so what's the difference? You might as well just play off the characters. I mean, we're all thinking it, and they're just purposely trying to steer us away from it. It's weird because it's the stuff that writes itself, and they're actively avoiding it when they desperately need content. How many times do they go to packages of stuff during this show, during Monday Night Raw? They're going to packages. They go to a package of the stuff that happens in the same show earlier on. So they're clearly trying to fill time, and they've got more people on the roster than they need. And so they're just really not utilizing the resources that they have. And this was, like I said, like you liked it. I didn't like it. Kayla Braxton just sounds like everything she says is like the most unnatural thing a human being could ever say in that moment. It doesn't even sound like a stiff reporter asking a question. It sounds like an awkwardly written, like, Golden Age comic book character.
It's a weird thing they have as well, that they have when they have their own announcers and interviewers. Exactly that. They're just more robotic, and they have this set way of talking. But as soon as you get a Pat McAfee in there or a Jimmy Smith, I've not heard much of Jimmy Smith or not, but you get these people in that have an actual normal voice, have a unique style to their commentary, and there you go. It's so much more engaging than anything else you're getting. I mean, Tom Phillips got sacked this week. I mean, it sounds bad. I think he will get a job somewhere else, but if you give him the sort of style that he did as a commentator, would he really be missed when you've got the same style of commentary flat out all over the roster? You don't think you bring someone else and just talk exactly the same way and he wouldn't be missed? Now, granted, he was a lot better than a lot of what they have, but it didn't seem to change the how it is and how it's presented.
They got a closet full of Tom Phillipses. So, with all due respect to Tom Phillips, they'll just pull another one out.
Yeah. Oh, this is a big comment there. Big Ray commenting in. This is a scary time if you're a wrestling fan. This is the first time that I can say pro wrestling might actually be cancelled, like off the air for good. I'm not sure.
What are you talking?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, Big Ray? Obviously, the deal, right? Everybody knows
can't
that,
afford this. They can't.
Yeah.
I think that. Do you think they are going for a sale? You think it must be?
I will only say no because it's Vince.
Yeah.
If you like, I mean, I've been surprised in the past at the way, that things that have happened. But you think of like, there's nobody else that you can really think of that you can attach names to.
Yeah.
In these kind of situations to where they basically completely own everything. And so I just don't see, like, if Vince is that kind of a guy that's so psychotic that he's ripping up scripts 40 minutes before they go live type thing, why does he care that much if he's just planning to step away? If they sell the WWE, what is he going to do? He can't, the workaholic, what is he going to do? Money means nothing to him already. So it's not like he's doing this for, to ensure the safety of future generations. None of that is like a real consideration for this. So I always just have to turn and look at, like, what is they going to do now? If you want to tell me that they're getting they've talked him into making some moves to prepare for his eventual death, then I'd much more inclined to believe that.
That is a thought that will come to mind very soon as well. Just to that point, though, I think that when you look at something like the UFC, when WMA bought them over, Dana White was still very much the cog in the wheel. He was like the engine part, but he was still running operations. So even though he wasn't the owner anymore, he was still doing all the work. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to do that, and then Vince still having hands on it, like still have that little bit of ownership, whereas it's still my company. I will still be in that production room whether you like it or not. I think there's still a bit of that where they'll sell it, but not enough that Vince won't have some kind of stranglehold on the company.
Well, that is a tough thing, because the whole idea is, if you sell, you're talking about controlling interest, right? It's a public company. So it's not as simple as, oh, we'll just buy this company. You would have to buy him out of his shares. And if you buy him out of his shares, then he can't be in that position where he still runs the company and has a stranglehold on it. He can be shouted down. So that's what he's not willing to give up.
That's a bizarre thought. Vince McMahon being shouted down. That'd be crazy to see. But
well, in theory, obviously, figuratively speaking, not literally, but like, just the idea is like, well, we voted and, we decided that, no, we're going to go with the script that the writers handed.
Time for you to go.
Whatever. Yeah. So exactly. So until he's ready to go. And I don't think he'll ever be ready to go, because this is his entire life, not just a figure of speech. That is his entire life. So, happen.
Yeah.
But he moves to get ready. That's it. I mean, it's an obvious knee-jerk reaction to think that, oh, a bunch of cuts. Oh, they sold the or outsourced it or whatever whatever you want to say. But like, realistically, I just don't see it happening.
I mean, there are some strange moves of just sort of Imagine Vince being like Colonel Sanders after he sold his company. The board meetings would be fun. Thanks for that, Cam.
Yeah.
It's a thought. It's totally a thought. Although you won't have the million of spices, you'll have the million of booking decisions that only he will know and no one else will. That would be seems a bit poignant for that. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. It's not always guaranteed it's going to be a sale, but it is what it is. It'll be interesting to see what comes in the summer. I think that's where we'll get a lot more answers is the next few months as we get past SummerSlam, move on to the Rumble. These are the sort of more profitable times for them, especially now we've got fans in. So it could be a knee-jerk reaction to suggest that, because it could just be them making this call to set themselves up for the next few years, because there's no guarantee that you're going to fill stadiums all the time. You're not going to fill arenas with fans, so you will make some point of a loss or not as much profit as you were hoping. So, this could be sort of getting the water out of the boat, per se, and just helping themselves a little bit more financially in that there. But we've got some SmackDown to talk about, actually. We'll carry on.
Yeah, let's talk
carry on. First segment of the night with the Street Profits and the Alpha Academy. Chad Gable has said they are not on the up. They are on a downward trend, and tries to sell the Alpha Academy to that. And it's like, I want the smoke. Can I have the smoke? To which he got a resounding no.
They tell him he cannot.
Yep.
And then
he just walks.
And then from there,
we go backstage. The Usos go to the office of the general managers, Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, or the general managers, but not general managers, but the general managers, Pearce and Sonya Deville, and they have to make it right. Pearce rightfully says its decision's final, and then Sonya Deville does what Sonya Deville does and just steps over Adam Pearce's feet on every issue. He goes, well, actually,
good for her.
I'll have a chat and we'll figure something out. It's that, you know what this is? This is like when you ask your dad something and he just goes, ask your mother. This is exactly what's happening here. It's like, Dad, can I get this? Ask your mother. Yes, it's happening. That's what we got there. They knew they were going to get their tag title match, but they didn't show up. But they did say we're going to have that there. Back to
which is gonna be a slow burn build until WrestleMania when we get Adam Pearce versus Sonya Deville.
Do you think we'll get
for control of?
Exactly. I was going to say, do you think we'll get that tag match with Teddy Long and John Laurinaitis? We'll just have the entire bottom half of the mid card in this 10-man tag match, and probably see.
Yep, it will be. And the Undertaker. Yeah. Let's book it.
I'm up for that.
Book it.
Back to the ring. Liv Morgan versus Carmella. It's almost this was weird. I don't like in the ring. I didn't really mind it too much. It wasn't the best match, but it was almost like they decided Liv Morgan was a new wrestler. That the past how many years with the Riot Squad, with Ruby Riot, didn't happen. It was
they've done that before.
They have got this weird thing about it. They have done it before. And I get you don't want to bring attention to it.
Wasn't she taking a bubble bath once and talking about, her thinking about her destiny when she was 5 years old or some bullshit?
What happened to that? And the whole thing with Lana?
I don't know. They would do earlier when I was talking about I was surprised how they came back from a commercial break and went right to the tag match, because that's what they here. They had Carmella come out to the ring, and then had the Usos thing that you were talking about while she's standing in the ring, and then they have Liv Morgan make her entrance, and then they have the match. So they've got this weird thing of like inserting stuff in between wrestlers on breaks, and I have no idea at what point they started formatting the show that way. I don't know, because he likes it. They're wrong if they do. But the nicest thing I can say about this match here, and I have in my notes, is at least it didn't go through a break.
That was fair. It's pretty fair. It's one of those matches where it's like, it was there. And the ending part made me think, oh dear, we're going back a few years.
Well, we need stuff like this. Not necessarily that last part, but just like the match, just to be on TV to have a match.
Yeah. Worthwhile for that.
Like yeah, we need that kind of stuff. But it's like as for us as analysts, what can we really say about
Yeah,
it? Like, there's nothing groundbreaking, there's nothing terrible. It just sort of
yeah,
existed, so we can't really give a proper commentary
yeah.
on
It was
it.
your sort of standard
Um,
middle of the show kind of match that you got for this one, you know.
yeah, yeah. So as a viewer, it's fine, but as for us who are trying to create content, what can we really
Yeah.
say, right?
Have a good one, Big Ray. Kick some ass at work today. But
All right, Ray. Thanks for stopping in.
but yeah, it just seems a bit. It was there, and then the promo afterward was Carmella telling telling the Ham, announce it right. This is what I want told now, and he announces her as the most beautiful woman in WWE. Which
All right.
fair. She's feeling herself. She's feeling like, you know, she's got a bit of confidence about herself. But my worry is, and I feel like it's a legitimate worry because we've had these sort of feuds before. There's going to be a feud over that statement. I'm not agreeing. I'm the most beautiful woman in WWE. Or they'll get someone and they'll try and perceive her as ugly, which is a bit uncool. And have them have that sort of, hey, we don't have to look like this to be beautiful. It's a good message to have, but they'll do it in such a blunt way where the message just isn't what you hope it is. It just seems a bit, oh, I don't like the thought of it. So maybe it's just a storyline thing. I keep thinking they should pair her up with Eva Marie, even though Eva Marie's on Raw just now. I think it'd be a really good pairing, but I don't know. It's so up in the air with SmackDown's women division just now because we've got nothing. We've not got a division. You know, we lost Ruby Riott, who's one of the better workers. Natalia and Tamina are tag champions, so they're tied up, going all across the brands. And that leaves you with,
but
not here tonight. Unbelievably, despite them being on every single week for months. So we're left with these two, Bayley, Bianca Belair. We've only got the 4. We can't really count Sasha just now because she's disappeared off the face of the earth. 4 women in that division. Man, that's they're thin division. Well, like, our roster is quite thin on SmackDown when you look at the tag divisions and then your main event scenes and the Intercontinental title picture scenes are a little clutching at straws now because Aleister Black's gone. I feel we're going to get into a worrying trend. I know there was sort of chat of bringing up NXT talents and other things. We're going to bring people in to fill the gaps. But right now, it's a bit of a thin roster. This has got to get you to Hell in a Cell and potentially Money in the Bank if they're not going to do moves in between.
Well, to be honest, James, I mean, with that, with all the Roman Reigns entrances and recap packages on here, there's not room for much more than 4 women. So I guess they're in a good spot after all.
That's a good way of putting it. But I just feel they could do more with what they've got, and they don't have it there. But we'll crack on. Mysterios are trying to leave, as is their want and right to do so. And Pearson DeVille stop them, say, actually, you're going to have to defend your titles again against the Usos. Mulligan ahoy, as we see here.
Yeah. They took the news well.
They did. Fair play. Good on them.
Yeah.
Then we get to what I thought was the weirdest segment of the night. Standard Bianca Belair promo talking about Bayley laughing, how Bayley's done nothing but laugh, and it's starting to get to her. So she makes the challenge to Bayley to have a match at Hell in a Cell. She's got any guts, she'll come out and accept. And then we cut to Bayley in the studio, and it's filled. She's on a couch, on a white couch. Very clean white couch, which made it very more creepy for me. I don't know why. Surrounded by big pictures of moments in Bayley's career of success and what she's done, like holding titles and winning things. And it's just her laughing for a little bit. And Bayley says she accepts the challenge at Hell in the Cell, and she is not going to be the only one who will be laughing. And I was like, okay, fair enough line. Starts laughing again. And then all of the screens of the Thunderdome changed to Bayley's face laughing. I wasn't a fan of her laughing last week. I'm not a fan of her laughing now. In fact, if anything, it gave me a bit of a chill. I thought, this seems more like an Alexa Bliss fiend move than it is a normal upstanding person. And by normal upstanding person, I mean someone you just dislike, but rightfully so. They're still normal to some degree.
But not possessed by
Not possessed by a demon or anything. So she's getting a bit psycho, which I don't know. For the work that Bayley's done over the past year and a bit during this Thunderdome era, and some of the stuff she put out has been quite entertaining, this just felt a bit like a hit the post moment for her.
As long as she gets a ding dong hello in, I'm good. That's over with me.
I'm totally okay with that.
Yes, but other than that, it's a little kind of a Neo and Architect in the Matrix type deal, right? With the whole Thunderdome full of
that
Baileys.
would have been cool because you'd have different emotions of Bayley while it happened, like laughing and screaming and saying "fuck you" now and again. That'd be fun. We can't quite get to that level yet. They're just now figuring out that they can replace every screen with Bayley. They don't have to just have the fans there. So what baby steps? But but earlier on when I mentioned that there's only one person to really come from NXT and not immediately be buried, I'm talking about Bianca Belair, right? Yeah. Everybody else has been worthless. Not that they were worthless, but that's how they were treated, right? That's what their runs were treated like. Aleister Black, we were talking about, he spent most of his time sitting in dark rooms and not doing much, absolute
right?
Madness.
So here's the only NXT person not to be immediately buried. But then we get this promo here, which, like, you're not wrong. It was very weird. She took a long time to get to whatever point she was trying to make. And it was almost as though, I don't know if this happened, but if someone told me this happened, I would believe it. It's almost as if she was like in the gorilla and they were like, someone went up to her and said, "You just got 5 minutes added to your promo.
Oh no.
So go pull some time." Like, because again, we need to fill time here. Sorry, Carmella and Liv went a bit short. We need you to go out and cut an extra 5 minutes.
You can do that, right?
I could see. Yeah, well, it'll look like this, but she does it. So that was kind of weird. It's like either that or she couldn't remember what she was supposed to say, so she was trying to like work it out loud. I
would kind of lean towards that because I've been there. It is a very real thing when you try to scramble.
Right, as an actor, like sometimes you're filibustering until your brain catches up with.
As soon as you figure it out, it's like you do this weird thing where you just kind of fill the gap with things you think are the right things, and when it hits, you try and circle right back to that point. So you might have a lot of repeating yourself, but it's a weird time.
Right. We call that in the business, we call that the Glenn Gilbert. So in any case, she gets through it, and she's normally much more natural, I think, when she's talking, or at least she comes off with her lingo is, much more believable than, say, somebody like Angelo Dawkins. Just put it out there. She sounds more natural. But in this one, it definitely felt awkward. So don't know why. But like you said, there's really no depth to the roster. So we're working towards another Bayley and Bianca match at Hell in a Cell. So that's what we'll be getting. Don't know if it'll be a cell match in particular. No. Probably not. But
I think the cell match should be Rollins and Cesaro. But I feel like
well, you gotta have two or three.
I think they'll do Rollins.
You gotta build that cage just to have one match.
I wish they'd just done like a TNA lockdown thing where it was like every match was in Hell in a Cell. I'd maybe watch that. That'd be okay.
Let's completely kill it dead and piss on the corpse.
We're nearly there anyway, so we're at that point. They have a pay-per-view for it, so you might as well. But I think if there's going to be two matches that are Hell in a Cell worthy, it's Rollins and Cesaro, which would be good for Cesaro, and then the Raw main event for the WWE title, which I suppose kind of makes sense, but not really. But we'll crack on along because we have got a bit of a time limit here. We get backstage again. The Street Profits weirdly wearing red, not something we've seen since they moved to SmackDown. I took note of that. Something not quite similar to the aesthetic that I'm used to, so I thought something's going on. Otis comes up, tells him they need to apologize to Chad Gable because he was only looking to help, and this is a great line they said. It's like, look, Gable's holding you back. You got to tell him where to go. And it just sets Otis off. And he takes them out. And it was like a temper tantrum almost that he did. He just shoved them into the wall, threw them in there, and then marched off. Quite like that from Otis, because we've not really seen much of Otis in terms of a character. He's like a puppet. He's a mindless meat puppet that, that Gable can just do this, do that. So it's nice that they gave him a little bit of depth and have him say, look, come on, he's just looking for help you out, and then get very angry when. So there is a bit of thing in there. But I like Heel Lotus. It works a bit better than it was, but
is it better than when they spent countless hours of television time trying to get him and Mandy Rose over?
Oh, I think so, and we'll never get those hours back. I did buy into it last year. I did buy into that story. I had a great laugh with it. But then when you see where it went, where he won Money in the Bank, didn't even get to cash it in, he lost it to The Miz, it was a bit like, oh, well, that was a waste. That's where I was at that point. So I'm quite happy that they're trying something a bit different, a bit unique, that they're going to give him some kind of a new layer to him. And it maybe was needed because they hit the bar on it and it wasn't really clicking all that great. If they'd struck while the iron was hot, maybe we'd have got a lot more out of Otis, but for whatever reason, they just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, it had to have been something that happened that set them off, because they don't normally derail somebody's push immediately like that, especially after sinking all that time into them.
I could not believe that. Yeah,
which will henceforth be known as the Braun Strowman.
Totally. Oh, don't say that. That'll make me worried that he's going to get sacked soon. Is that too soon?
Never too soon.
How's it going to be on the Indies, my friend? Good luck there. We'll move right along. Something I really enjoyed was Nakamura coming out, because they finally got it right with Boogz and technical difficulties. Last week was a bit of a shambles, but this week we got it almost on the ball, because you get Boogz, or whatever. I like to say it in high pitch. He prefers to do it low, but whatever. But he comes out with the guitar, introduces Nakamura, and he starts playing it. And he does the opening set of it, does a big guitar leap and sits there. And then there's this weird, lengthy silence until it starts. So maybe just a little bit off. But apart from that, I quite like this aesthetic and how it builds up the rock star persona, a bit more character than Nakamura. Gives Boogz something to do, which is nice. I mean, he's just a right-hand man at the moment. But
well, you keep saying Boogz, but are you sure you're not referring to former WWE 24/7 champion Joe Average from Old Spice?
Wait, was he Joe Average?
Oh man!
Oh no, I did not even pick. I didn't even notice that. Holy shit!
Oh boy, yeah.
It was. Yeah, that's how average he was. I don't even recognize him. Basic.
So average, but now he's Boogz,
and he can play guitar.
Which is a takeoff on his shoot name, which I think is Bugenhagen or some hilarious name like that. But he somehow made that even dumber, or they did, or maybe it was a concerted effort. They both sat down and figured out how they could completely make sure that he will never.
To be fair to him though, they are consistent with the gimmick, because he got himself well over doing air guitar in that match. That match he got jobbed in NXT, to the point where he got an encore entrance. So I suppose they are consistent where they're keeping him with a guitar. That's not bad.
Well, yeah, I mean they are consistent with that at least. And he was an MVP during the developmental wrestlers in the crowd on Raw era. Him and Shotzi Blackheart would be the prom king and queen of that era. But as far as this goes, like if anything doesn't need a recap package, it's
Jesus,
this
match
nonsense.
Was the recap package.
It was so bad. So yeah, it's so bad that even Corbin was mad in the ring after watching it.
Are we going to get a proper match with these two? That's my question coming out of this. Like, we don't have proper matches. We just have like a couple of bits here and there, and then a quick finish.
All I feel like we get is proper matches. I mean, technically, just because the match is over quickly doesn't mean it's not a proper match. I mean, if this is real sports, it can end in a flash, right?
But
So
I sort of mean,
it's still a proper match, but that's the problem. They're going back to their booking of how do we get people hyped up, and how do we build this match by having it 5 times in a row. And so then we're supposed to get invested in it to watch it again on maybe an event like a Hell in the Cell or something, or a pre-show somewhere or something like that. But all they've done is just kept having the match rather than figure out a way around having the match to get people interested in a match. But your crux of the story is he stole this shitty crown, and he like, this is the most childish. It makes both these guys look dumb. Corbin doesn't need any help with that. Nakamura has fallen as far as a person could possibly fall doing this. Think about that. Like the only time we get an interaction with these guys about this damn crown is when they're about to have a match. So you mean to tell me that I'm supposed to believe that Baron Corbin would like show up at the building and then just like sit around while Nakamura's sitting somewhere else in the building and just never try to confront him about getting his crown? He only cares about getting his crown in his segment on the television show. I mean, this is a life-altering crown here. You'd think he'd like go to Nakamura's house and maybe assault his family trying to get his crown back. But no, he just waits for his schedule.
The old Triple H and Randy Orton spot where he gets thrown through the window of his own house. Would love to see that.
Which luckily they had the camera also waiting outside because they knew that he would get thrown through the window.
They were on the ball that night. But like for me, I feel like you need it as well, because I came out in this show a few weeks ago on the Smack Attack, and I got very excited because I thought this was going to lead to the King of the Ring tournament. We were going to get the King of the Ring again. This was going to establish a new name, or it's going to turn Nakamura and get that mystique back. Gone. It's all gone. It's not happening because we're getting this shit instead. And I was like, as much as I like the whole Nakamura aesthetic with Boogz there and the guitar and all this stuff, the storyline just, it's not there for me. It's awful. It's absolutely awful that we're just getting the ha 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 ha, ha, I've got your crown, hee hee hee, I'm running away. That is,
it's not there for anybody.
It was right there in front of them. Right there. King of the Ring tournament. You don't have it does itself. It books itself. And they decide to be childish and silly, and we're just going to get more King Corbin or Nakamura. And it's like they could have made more than 2 people out of this. They could have had a storyline out of this, great. But then you could have brought in like the Intercontinental title picture into this. You know, you've got Apollo Crews, who's supposed to be Nigerian prince. You'd be like, I could be a king, the king of Nigeria. Whoa. And or have like Big E, he could get a big push out of this because he's just I'm on fire here. You have Big E, you know, get a big rub out of this, get a big result, become a main event talent out of this. Cesaro could do some work. Seth Rollins could do something. Jesus, they had so much in front of them and never done it. And
of course not. And again, this is on the same show with the Roman Reigns stuff. Man. So this is the disparity that we're talking about here. Like, you should not have to suffer through this when we know that the baseline can be set even higher.
Yeah.
But instead they're seeing how low they can go. But I will say this, even though this is all very embarrassing, as a fan or as a professional, anyone that has said over the past weeks that McAfee's had the life sucked out of him and turned into just another drone or a puppet, just need to listen to him screaming, trying to get over Shinsuke putting the crown on.
He's putting that effort in.
He's definitely, there's plenty of juice left in McAfee. Don't you worry about him. He'll be fine.
Get something out of him. That's why they got him in. They don't want to have the same person over and over. They want something like McAfee because he could do it. So
well, you've heard people talking about that, right? Like they've been saying that they've took away his individuality and just made him sound like everybody else. Listening to this show, I definitely don't agree with that.
Like he's been someone who's even been brought into the fold long before this, when he was working on NXT for the pre-shows and getting them in WrestleMania things. So it's not as if he hasn't been involved before. He's been part of the system.
Right. Well, yeah, we know that. I'm just saying, like, recently, very recently, within the past couple of weeks, I've just heard people, including people here.
Yeah.
Ben Hameen was saying that McAfee is no longer what he once was. So I don't know it, because I'll be honest with you.
Mm.
A lot of the times when I'm watching wrestling, I'm not intently watching it. I kind of have
Yeah.
it on. And because Michael Cole is part of this commentary team, my brain automatically tunes it out. So I don't always really listen to what the SmackDown guys are saying, even though I like Pat. I just haven't been listening the past few weeks because I've been
Yeah.
multitasking. But actually sitting and listening intently and paying attention, either he stepped it back up this week, or people, the rumors of his demise have been greatly
I
exaggerated.
think they've been greatly exaggerated. Although you can tell there are moments where he gets lines fed to him and he has to get that out. And there's something about that. It's just like a switch, and he just kind of he's like talks normal like we are just now, and he goes, Seth Rollins has been angry at Cesaro after losing at WrestleMania, and then it's a weird change. You can pick up on that a little bit. You can see that in the way he talks. But no, I think generally he's still pretty good. I don't think there's anything to be worried about.
You also catch him standing up
love
at the
it.
desk sometimes.
You love to see that. He's just getting in and into it.
Even
that's
yeah. But overall it was embarrassing. This whole thing was embarrassing. And speaking of embarrassing, Commander Aziz comes up next. Attacking
Let's just
Kevin
power
Owens.
through this. I mean, Kevin Owens, Aziz is banned from ringside. I know how to deal with this problem. I'll just attack him before the match, because then they won't get me then.
Genius.
So smart, so wise.
Yeah.
Genius move. So
yeah, and then if you notice, Jamie Noble and Pat Buck come in to break it up, and so there was a running gag that I had on my previous podcast where every time Pat Buck came back to break something up, he seemed to get pretty handsy, especially when it was like the ladies, So I would say that he broke it up, but he also groped the people, and he definitely groped Aziz here. Pat Buck groped Commander Aziz.
You wanted to know what was going on there. You wanted to get a nice feel of things there. No, I always find funny as well is like when the big guys do stuff like this, they look for the smallest people in their backstage team to help with the situation. They don't go for normal sized people or tall people. No, Jamie Noble, you're tiny. Get in there. And it just looks so silly. I do have a little chuckle now and again at it, but it's a Vince thing, isn't it? Getting the small people.
Yeah, get Abyss out
totally.
there. Abyss should be breaking things up.
Oh my god, that'd be quality. But we get the match, and undoubtedly, the issue is Owens' ribs. Well, Cruz works them quite a bit. And it's just kind of Owens getting his hope spots in, but as he starts going, the rib interferes, and Apollo Crews comes back to that there, which is nice. I quite liked it, the focus on that there. It gives a reason for Owens to come back later on for another shot of the title for that there. And I kind of wish that Apollo Crews he does have matches where he's winning without Aziz there. But it gets muddy. I think I'm just kind of jumping ahead a little bit, because you have this match where Owens is injured. He doesn't really get the offense he would like in. Apollo Crews takes advantage. As he leaves, Sami Zayn gets involved again, which is really like, I don't know, are they trying to set up a triple threat? Are they trying to do something else? It seems like, weirdly, it feels like Apollo Crews is the afterthought of this feud, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, what can you expect? Again, this is the same show with Roman Reigns, and then we get this whole thing thrown into disarray. Now, Big E wasn't on the show this week. Why wasn't he on the show this week? Probably simply because the person that he was going to have a program with was fired. So what can we do? Oh, well, we can't have Big E on TV because then people will think about that guy. Yeah, sure. That's what in their mind they're thinking. So rather than slide Big E into something else immediately, that's their mindset when
and they can't even get Big E into the Intercontinental title picture again, because they've done that for a big chunk of time where it runs the risk, and it was running the risk of being overplayed. So do you just sit him back?
Well, that's never stopped them before.
Absolutely not.
That has never stopped them before, and they can definitely
and they probably will.
So let me just talk about Apollo Crews
Yeah.
for a second. Now, this, I just want to confirm this with you. This is the worst thing in professional wrestling right now, right? This gimmick?
A little bit, yeah. I would maybe say so. I'm starting to lean towards that, even though there must be something more surely than this. He's trying.
Yeah, but the thing is, whatever that worst thing is, that would be something that you would expect to be worse. You would not think that that would be something with the biggest marketing machine in, in professional wrestling. It is the industry leader, putting all this money behind it, and pushing it to the degree that it is as a rib, which we all know that it is. There's no way that it's not. Um, and what's bad is like Apollo is really trying to make lemonade and chicken salad out of it. But it's so bad. Like the whole presentation is so bad. You can like, even if he did the exact thing where he had an attitude change, decided he wanted to reflect more of his Nigerian roots, because Nigerians are hot right now. We got Kamaru Usman, we got Israel Adesanya. They're pro fighters, that made good names for themselves in recent years. And so like Nigeria is really stepping up in the combat sports department. So there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, but they did everything wrong because they took it to stereotypical literal spear wielding Nigeria. They had him create an accent out of nowhere. This is the reverse Kofi Kingston, where Kofi dropped an accent and Apollo Crews found one and picked it up. And by the way, his name is still Apollo Crews, which is just the least Nigerian name ever.
Not that he was called Uha Nation before or anything like that either. Right there, right?
Right. So obviously we don't want to do that. I mean, because of the way they look at like trademarking stuff, but still, you could come up with a completely different name than Apollo Crews that the WWE also owns. Because if you're trying to transform the character, so I would say just the attitude change, no accent, no weird commander that's definitely not Nigerian at all, no spear, none of the stereotypes or insensitivity surrounding it, but just have him have the attitude change and wear the colors. That would be just enough. But they did everything wrong. And so like, even though he's, like I said, he's trying to make lemonade and chicken salad out of it, but it's really holding him down. And I feel bad for him because he's a guy that you look at and, his whole time in the WWE since NXT, you're looking at him and you're like, well, you got to do something with this guy. But for whatever reason, like I just never found any interest in him. Like he wasn't big enough to be a big guy, and he's too athletic. Also, like he's really athletic, but he's too big to be like a cruiserweight guy. So it's like he's in this weird no man's land where like he looks good, but he doesn't do well with scripted material. So it's like there's like all these things that are kind of working. They give him the shitty name Apollo Crews, which it's only what like a white person trying to think of two black names that he's heard of from movies and television would come up with. And that's, that whole, so it's all been working against him. And then he finally gets something that he can kind of sink his teeth into, but it comes with all these unnecessary bells and whistles just to keep him like dragged down. So I feel really bad for the guy because he's got to have been frustrated. I'm sure he's said as much in interviews. But this is it's too much and it's just bad, man.
Yeah.
However, on a positive note, this match was nowhere near bad. It was actually, there was some interesting selling by Kevin Owens, like such as him hitting the ropes and selling his ribs, which anybody that's hit the ropes knows they hurt real bad. But of course, as a professional, you build up a callus to it. But it's still nothing comfortable. They barely move at all. But Michael Cole also had the quote, the ribs gave out, which I don't know if ribs give out like in that sense. That's more of a muscle thing. It's not really. I don't know if people are like working out their ribs in the gym,
that's a trip to the hospital right there. That's the case. Jeez.
Right. Yeah. The only time the ribs are giving out is like, like a barbecue or something like that. They caught a slow motion leg slap on a super kick, so that was good. That's probably a fine for
Yep.
Kevin Owens, right? And then they actually did an apron move that beat somebody.
Yeah.
So
The Death Valley Driver.
So kudos.
Which I like.
Yeah, we see guys get dropped on the apron every week, and we hear that it's the hardest part of the ring, but never beats anybody. And finally, it beats somebody. So I like that. This was as close to perfect as a WWE television match can get. So I'm going to take my hat off to these guys and the agent, whoever it might have been.
Yeah, fair play. I think if they can do that more often, it'd be grand. But yeah, it was a fun little match. I hope we'll see more of this as well. Obviously, with Sami Zayn involved, it looks like they'll probably get a triple threat at Hell in a Cell. But these are the kind of matches I quite like to see on SmackDown that are really good, strong performances, and have a little bit more to them rather than just your regular 5-minute match. Because that's when I feel SmackDown's at its best, is when you get a decent amount of time with a decent match, and you don't have to kind of fill the gaps too much with that there.
Well, the story's really good too, right? Jump from behind to before the match starts, goes out there bravely, gets his ass kicked for most of it, gets a couple of moves, but not really a lot. Nothing unbelievable where you're like, okay, now he's Superman. And then he just gets beat straight up. So you rarely see that kind of stuff. And I like it. I like what they did. Give the agent for this match to Shinsuke and Corbin.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Maybe it is the same one, and if it is, you have to ask some questions. But bit of Jekyll and Hyde book in there. Yeah. But we'll finish off. We've not got much to go. We've only got a few minutes, about 10 minutes or so to go. So we'll just get into the main event. The Usos versus Dominic and Rey again for the tag titles again. Much the same as what we got earlier on. I thought it was just kind of a continuation of the opening match. But the big talking point, of course, was the ending. The Mysterios kind of getting on top of the Usos for quite a bit of the match. It looked like it was going to end the same way again. And then Reigns just pops out of nowhere and decides to just take care of business himself and batters Rey and Dominic for a good couple of minutes. Even yelling at the Usos to say they should have cleaned up their messes, but they didn't do it. So he's here to do it for them. And he just smashes Rey and Dominic with the ring steps and say, look, like, you're just going to get whipping. You're just going to... There's one point he asked, he turns to Ray, he's like, look, you just get your son take a whipping with these steps. It's like, Jesus Reigns. It's like, he's out. He's a bit injured. Give him a chance. And he just throws him all over the shop. Starts ground and pounding Dominic until... Let's say until, but it's this sort of... He gets Dominic in...
They go
yeah, they do. He gets Dominic in that guillotine and just makes the Usos watch. And Jade,
even with maybe Bianca went too long on her extra 5 minutes, and so they had to
choke him out. Just get him out of there now, quick as you can. And then Jay's trying to be the reasonable person. Like, he's had enough. Get off him, and eventually he does. And just leaves. And then Jimmy tries to leave and he tries to get Jay to come with him, but Jay has that weird moment of confliction again. And it's even Reigns looks, you see Reigns look at Jay because of this, and then back at Dominic, just beats him up a bit more and hits him with a power bomb to close the show. Again, I quite like how they're trying to elevate the Mysterio tag team into a bigger spot with the tag titles. Obviously, this is going to be the story to set up what happens between Reigns and the Usos, so you need a strong second half of that there. But I don't know. I'm still interested in what's happening, but I'm a bit worried. Are they going to try and break up the Usos before we even do it, or are they going to try and do Reigns versus the Usos?
Well, for all intents and purposes, they have been broken up. They're just now getting together. Yeah. So, in a sense, we're really not together, and it's kind of the battle for Jay's soul, right? Which, it's kind of funny how in their prime as a tag team, they're always talking about, Uso Penitentiary and Lockdown and all this other stuff that's very heelish. And now it's like, oh well, you guys are a little too heelish.
Yeah, go bring it back.
So it's just fine. But this is what I'm looking at when I'm seeing this. what I'm looking at here, and we were talking about who does Roman have? And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what if Roman Reigns has Rey Mysterio now? Because Roman's at that point where, let's take the story out of it. Let's just look at him as a person. He's got to have he's the one that's got to go out there and have these matches. So he's going to be wanting to work with guys that he wants to work with. I'm pretty sure that's what he wanted to work with. Daniel Bryan. I'm pretty sure he wanted to work with Cesaro, or at least Daniel Bryan exercised his creative control and not on himself, but on Cesaro, like a favor for a buddy type deal. But either way, I'm sure Roman didn't mind. And I'm sure that a dream match would be him and Rey Mysterio for him, because it'd be that would be a great match. That'd be easy to have for both those guys, right? Simple story to tell, easy work, but it could still be a good match. So, and it gives Rey like another one of those main event things, because he's been pretty marginalized.
It's almost a nice little, it's like a nice moment in the sun from more like, isn't it? That he getting towards tail end.
Right. So now you give him a thing like, you did this to, you're talking about family, and you did this to my family. So, I'm going to, I want to challenge him. And then of course, Roman Reigns is going to be like, this is ridiculous. Like I would fight, so it's already built in. So it works on 3 levels. It works from a storyline standpoint, cause they already set it up. It works from a shoot standpoint, because I'm sure, Roman would love to work with Rey Mysterio, a legend, a living legend. And it works as it's going to be a good match that we get to see as the fans. So in a minimum of 3 levels, this works. And that's what I'd like to see. And I guess we'll see if they go that
I also
route.
think you can add the little nugget of, you could use Reigns to take Dominic Mysterio out for a while. So we could kind of take him back to the Performance Center and refine himself. He's had a great run. It's a great story point if Reigns just takes out Dominic and injures him really badly. Well, storyline wise, obviously not for real, but he just does the damage to make this a more intense feud as well. That, as you say, it forces Rey's hand to fight for his family, because Reigns doesn't care. He's taken out Dominic, and it gives him that little bit of respite as well. He's had a lot of time on the main roster, and maybe too much too soon wouldn't be a great thing for him. But let him go back for a while, refine it, and he could come back to another big match like he did when he debuted against Rollins. You never know. So it'd be a fun way to go. The getting there for me is maybe the tricky part, because obviously you've got to decide what's happening with the Usos. Are they going to be paired up permanently and they're going to get the tag titles? Or are you going to have this sort of pseudo split for a while where they don't get it, which means the Mysterios would have to have the tag titles for a while, but you couldn't tie them up too much, because if you want to do Reigns and Mysterio, it's better if Mysterio's clean without a belt. So there'd be a lot of kind of organizing things for me to make that work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or they could just immediately do it. They can hot shot it like they do everything else, or like everybody does these days. Yeah. So, I mean, whatever they do, as long as we get a nice match out of it, I mean, we'll see. We're gonna have to leave it in Roman's hands, right? Because I'm sure he's in charge of a lot of his own creative.
He is a busy man, as he said on this week's show. Like, I've got things to do. What they are, we don't know. Most of it was spent sitting on the couch, as far as I'm aware. So maybe that's it. Reigns is the booker of SmackDown, so that's what he does. It's like my family are watching. You need to put on a good match here. It's like, but I'm Bianca Belair. Don't care. My family are watching. You put on a good match.
Maybe so.
But yeah,
you'll never get a seat at the table with matches like Baron Corbin's having. Let me tell you.
Totally. But no, it was a good way to end the show. A solid finish. Again, we kept Roman strong, as is their want, but also we've got some layers in the Uso storyline, and it gives a bit more fire to that potential tag match that we get down the line. Overall thoughts on this SmackDown as we get to the close here. Would you say we're kind of more up on this SmackDown, in the middle, a bit more down on it? Where are you about that?
Whatever I said at the beginning, I don't remember. I think it was somewhere in the middle category. I would guess. It's just some stuff was some stuff was good, and then other stuff was so bad that it just has to balance it out. Right?
I'm agreeing with you. I'm in the middle. If it wasn't for the Reigns and Uso stuff and what happened throughout the show, even though we kind of got the same match twice, I'd be a bit more down on this because there was a lot more to kind of wince at in terms of the promos and things that were going on. Maybe Rollins' promo I thought was a bit better, but it left a lot on the. It left me wanting a lot more than what we got. I wish we got a bit better than what we did.
His promo of handing his
solid
mic to
stuff.
Great promo. Yeah,
but
they had to tear that script up beforehand. Yeah. 30 minutes before they went on the air, they showed it to Roman and he didn't like it, so they tore it up and changed it to him handing his mic over. So
highlights of the show for that year. But we'll close up on that. Thank you so much for jumping on in this, by the way. It's an absolute pleasure. First time we worked together. Hopefully it's not the last time. I'd love to get you back on again and have another go at this at some point down the line. I'm sure we will.
Technology permitting.
Man, I'm having no joy with this stuff. So I will figure out.
That's all right. Next time you'll get StreamYard, and then we'll.
I know.
Be good.
I keep saying this as well. I'm going to get StreamYard. I'm going to get it, and then it just something happens and I don't. I'll have it for next week. As a promise to you, the listener, and to you, we will have it back on. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Always a pleasure having you on. So I hope we get you back on. Colin was a bit unhappy that he wasn't on though. So I suppose next time we'll do we could do a 4-way. We could have the Impact and the Smack Attack all together as one 4-way. I think.
And he was probably just making a pizza or something somewhere. I don't think he could have even done the show.
Too busy bossing it right now. But
yeah. But before I get out of here, I wanted to say this on the Impact Attack, and I apologize. I just forgot. It just slipped my mind. I'm in the middle of like a work sandwich here, or at the end of a work sandwich, I should say, because I got up to do Impact Attack. I went to work all night, and then I come back home and do this show. Just hop on immediately. So I unfortunately this slipped my mind, but I did want to put it over. That this week is the NWA pay-per-view, When Our Shadows Fall, Sunday at I believe it is 1:00 Pacific time. So you guys, you want to check that out because friends of mine are going to be working on that show. We're going to have the great JTG, one half of Crime Time. Y'all remember Jay the God is going to be taking on Fred Rosser, who most of you probably know as Darren Young. And then we're going to have another personal friend of mine, Serena Deeb, defending the NWA Women's Championship against Camille. So two big matches on this pay-per-view on Sunday on Fight TV. So I just got to show some support for them. And I'm sure Nick Aldis is doing something too, but that's us, whatever. So there's that. I wanted to get that in. And let's see. And I want to give a quick shout out to Big Ray and Colin. As the new kid on the block, they've shown me a lot of support, so I want to make sure I shout them out for it and say thanks. I do appreciate it, even though I bust their balls as they try to bust mine, but I don't sell it. So that's it. And then, of course, if anybody wants to get a hold of me for any reason or anything, my tag is @OpinionHaver on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, basically all social medias. So, get in touch with me. And this was really fun, James, and I'll definitely be back to do some more.
Absolutely.
Whenever and wherever that presents itself. But this was just as simple as slipping on a pair of comfortable slippers. We never met, and we just had a nice show. And that's basically I'm batting 1,000 for this. That's a baseball reference again. I don't know what Scotland's equivalent of American
I wouldn't say baseball's, man. I'd say you're on a hat trick, a football in Terminal 1. I would say that's a good one.
Okay, yeah. So a hat trick. Yeah. And that's 3 goals, right? So I think I've hit more than 3 goals in a row. So do they just keep calling it a hat trick if the guy gets 4 and 5? Or does the hat get
they
bigger,
just stop at 3, and then if you get more, you're doing really well for yourself. So it's not bad for that there. But no, thank you very much. I'll say the same as what I said to Rob when he came on. Open invitation. If you want to come on at any point, you just give me a shout and we'll do it. It's not a problem at all. We love having you on. We love having everyone on that comes on. So it's very much appreciated for that there. Thank you, the watcher, the listener, wherever you're taking us in just now. Thank you for your time. Thanks for listening to this. Hope you stuck with us through the technical difficulties at the beginning. If you're watching live on YouTube right now, stick with us on the Hammy Media Group YouTube channel right now. Is Light the Fuse, Ben Hameen, MSG, Matt Schaefer Gage are going to be talking all things AEW live on the network. If you're on Facebook, go to Hammy Media Group discussion group there. We've got all sorts of things going on, news stories, pick'ems, people go on there. William Ellis here with some of the best news content around. And follow us on Twitter, Hammy Media Group on Twitter as well. Keep it locked, all things Hammy Media Group. We're going to bounce out. Thank you so much for listening. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And we will see you next week for another edition of the Smack Attack. Cheery.